I was standing on the platform at Jackson Station, holding my son Noah close to me, when I heard a voice that made my whole body freeze. Emma. Emma Collins, is that you? I turned around slowly, and my heart dropped straight into my stomach. It was my father, David. I hadn't seen him in almost 2 months. Every time he wanted to visit, I made up some excuse. Every phone call, I cut short, saying I was tired or too busy. I'd been avoiding him like my life depended on it. And now here he was, standing right in front of me, and by the look on his face, I knew he saw everything. He saw my old puffer coat with the ripped pocket that I couldn't afford to fix. He saw the cheap boots I'd bought online for $12 because they were all I could afford. He saw Noah in a snowsuit that was clearly too small for him, the zipper barely closing over his growing belly. He saw my face, gaunt and pale, with dark circles under my eyes so deep they looked like bruises. And he saw my hands trembling from exhaustion and fear. "Dad," I managed to say, trying to smile, but my lips just started shaking instead. "Why are you at the subway station?" my father asked, walking closer, his eyes scanning every inch of me with deep concern. "What about your car? I bought you that new Kia for your birthday just last year. What happened to it?" "I sold it," I said, looking away because I couldn't bear to see his face. I needed the cash. "For what?" My father's voice tightened. "Emma, what is going on? You look like you've been run ragged. Why aren't you answering my calls? And where is Michael?" Michael, my husband. The man I thought I knew. I felt the tears start to well up in my eyes. For 2 months, I had held it together. 2 months of silence. 2 months of fear. 2 months of complying with every demand, handing over money, enduring insults, and living in constant dread. Now, looking into my father's eyes, I knew I couldn't do it anymore. "Dad," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the noise of the station. "Let's go somewhere private." We walked into a small coffee shop near the station. A cozy little place with warm lighting and the smell of fresh pastries. My father sat Noah down at a table, ordered him an apple juice and a big chocolate chip cookie, then sat down across from me and took my hand in his. "Tell me," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "All of it." And I told him everything. I told him how after Noah was born, my mother-in-law, Patricia Williams, started visiting more and more often. At first it seemed like she was just being helpful. She'd bring over casseroles and offer to watch the baby so I could rest. She gave me advice about breastfeeding and sleep schedules, and I was grateful for it. I thought she was being a caring grandmother, but then the advice turned into demands, and the demands turned into ultimatums. I explained how she found out about my grandmother's condo downtown. It was a beautiful 2-bedroom place in a great neighborhood. And my grandmother had left it to me when she passed away 3 years ago. It was fully in my name, completely paid off, worth at least $350,000. It was my grandmother's legacy to me. It's the only thing I had left of her. Patricia found out about it and started demanding that I sign the property over to Noah. For his future, she said. She wanted me to put it in a trust that she would control until Noah turned 18. I refused. I told her it was my grandmother's inheritance, that it had sentimental value to me, and that I wanted to manage my own property. I said maybe someday I'd pass it on to Noah, but that was my decision to make, not hers. My voice shook as I told my father what happened next. That's when it all started. I finished by my father listened in complete silence, only tightening his grip on my hand. A week after I refused, I continued. "You got jumped near your house that evening, remember? You said it was just random vandalism, some kids messing around?" I remember my father said, and his face went stone cold. "It wasn't random, Dad." The very next day after that attack, Patricia Williams came to my apartment. She sat down in the armchair like she owned the place, sipped her tea, and smiled at me. "How's your daddy doing?" she asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "Heard he got roughed up pretty bad. You know, things happen these days, especially to older folks living alone. Next time, it could be worse. Much worse." She was smiling when she said it, Dad. Smiling like she was talking about the weather. My father went pale. I watched the muscles in his jaw clench tight, but he stayed silent, letting me get it all out. I was scared. I continued, terrified actually, but I still refused to sign. I thought maybe she was bluffing, maybe she was just trying to scare me. Then Michael showed me a video. Had to stop for a moment because the memory of it made me feel sick. It's a video of me supposedly screaming at Noah, shaking him, saying awful things to him. Things like, I never wanted you and you ruined my life. But Dad, it's edited. They took pieces from different moments, different days, and spliced them together. They removed all the context. In the real videos, I was singing to Noah. I was playing with him. I was being a normal mother. But in their version, it looks like I'm abusing my own child. It looks terrifying. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. They said they would send it to Child Protective Services if I didn't sign the papers. They said CPS would take Noah away and prove I'm an unfit mother. They said I'd never see my son again. Those monsters, my father said out loud. The first time he'd spoken since I started talking. And I could hear the rage boiling inside him. That's not all. I said, my tears flowing freely now. Patricia used some contacts to get copies of my work documents, financial reports, expense accounts, things like that. And she forged them, Dad. She made it look like I was stealing money from the company. The numbers are changed, the signatures are faked, but it all looks exactly like me. She said if I didn't comply, she'd send those documents to my boss and to the police. I would be locked up for embezzlement and Noah would be gone forever. My father closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Keep going. They demand my entire paycheck, every last dime of it. Michael takes my bank card the day I get paid, pulls everything out and hands it over to his mother. They leave Noah and me just $75 a week for food, transit, daycare, everything. I stopped buying new clothes for myself months ago. I wear what I have until it falls apart. I get Noah's clothes from cheap online outlets. Sometimes I borrow money from coworkers just to be able to eat and feed my son. I could barely get the next words out. The car, Dad. They forced me to sell it too. They told me to sell it and give them the cash. I sold it for $8,000 even though it was worth at least $12,000. Patricia took all of it. She said it was the first installment for their silence. Where is Michael in all this? My father's voice was icy cold. It's completely on his mother's side. He says I should be grateful they haven't taken Noah already. He says I need to listen to them or things will get worse. He controls my phone, Dad. He reads all my messages, checks my call history every night. They strictly forbade me from telling anyone about any of this, especially you and Mom. They said if they found out I complained to anyone, next time you wouldn't just be assaulted. I paused, knowing what I had to say next would hurt him, Patricia's brother. Robert did time in prison years ago for robbery and assault. It was his people who jumped you that night. Patricia told me straight out that Robert can fix any problem. Permanently. I covered my face with my hands. Everything I'd bottled up for 2 months came pouring out. The fear, the humiliation, the helplessness. I cried while my father gently stroked my arm, waiting patiently for me to calm down. They still want the condo. I continued when I could speak again. They're pushing me to sign it over to Michael and he'll transfer it to his mother. They say it's only fair because I'm living with their son, that my grandmother's condo should be family property. I keep refusing, but they're pressing harder and harder. I shuddered at the memory of what happened last week. Last week, Patricia's brother's people were standing outside Noah's daycare, just standing there on the sidewalk watching the kids play through the fence. It was a warning. Patricia told me next time they'd walk right inside. Why didn't you tell me? My father gripped my hands tightly. Why didn't you tell me right away? I was scared, Dad. They hurt you once. I couldn't risk them doing it again, or worse, hurting Mom, or taking Noah. They have those forged documents. They have that video. They have people who won't stop at anything. I'm trapped. I don't know what to do anymore. My father stood up from the table and walked to the window. He stood there in silence for a long moment, looking out at the street. Noah was peacefully eating his cookie at the next table, completely unaware of what was happening. Thank God. I stared at my father's back. And I realized that telling him the whole story hadn't brought the relief I'd hoped for. Instead, the fear had only intensified. What now? What happens when Patricia finds out? I told him. What will she do to my father? What will she do to Noah? My father returned to the table and sat down. He looked at me, and I saw something unfamiliar in his eyes. Something cold, hard, and professional. Something I'd never seen before. Emma, he said calmly, there are some things you don't know about me. What do you mean? You know, I served 20 years in the army, but you don't know where exactly or what I did. I frowned, confused. My father had never talked about the details of his military service. He'd only ever said that he served, retired, and then started working as a security consultant for various corporations. I'd never asked for more details because he never seemed to want to share them. I was in special operations, he said quietly. Army intelligence. 20 years of operational work. Surveillance, recruitment, threat analysis, neutralizing targets. I know how to collect information that people try to hide. I know how to find weak spots in any organization. And I know how to plan operations so that the target doesn't even realize they've been trapped until it's way too late. I stared at my father with my mouth hanging open. Special operations, Army intelligence, my father. The quiet, gentle man who taught me how to ride a bike and made pancakes every Sunday morning. I didn't quit that line of work after I retired either, he continued. I consult on security matters for some very important people. I have connections in law enforcement, in federal agencies. I have people who will help me if I ask. And I have skills that you don't just forget. Dad, I don't understand. What are you saying? I'm saying that your mother-in-law and her ex-con brother think they're the smartest people in the room. They think they can blackmail and threaten and intimidate without consequences. But they chose the wrong family to mess with. They touched my daughter and my grandson. That was their biggest mistake. There was steel in his voice now, a hardness I'd never heard before. I suddenly understood that the person sitting across from me wasn't just my father anymore. This was a man who knew how to fight, truly fight, not with his fists, but with his intellect, his connections, and decades of experience in the shadows. What are you going to do? I asked. I'm going to solve this problem so completely that they never dare to even think about you or Noah again. I'm going to make sure that all their threats turn against them. But for that, I need time. And I need your help. What kind of help? You need to act completely normal. Keep handing over your money. Keep enduring the abuse. Don't show them that you told me anything. You cannot change your behavior at all. This is absolutely critical, Emma. They must be convinced that you are broken, that you'll stay silent and obey forever. You understand? I nodded, though my insides were twisting with terror at the thought of going back to that nightmare. How long? I whispered. Few weeks, maybe a month. I need to gather intelligence, prepare the evidence, and plan every single detail. We can't rush this. If we mess up, they'll destroy all the evidence and disappear, and they'll take Noah with them. We have to act precisely with no room for error. And if they find out I told you, they won't. We won't meet again in person. We won't talk on the phone. I'm going to install a secure messenger on your phone right now. The messages will delete automatically after you read them. There will be no trace on your phone. Michael won't find a thing, even if he checks it every hour. Dad, I said, and my voice cracked. I'm so scared. I know, sweetheart. But you have to trust me. I won't let anyone hurt you. No one will touch you, Noah or your mother. I promise you that. I've handled much bigger threats than some greedy mother-in-law and her criminal brother. Just hold on a little longer. Can you do that? I looked over at Noah, who was smiling at me, his face smeared with chocolate from the cookie. I looked back at my father, whose eyes held absolute certainty, complete confidence. I nodded. I can do it. That's my girl. My father took out his phone and spent the next 10 minutes installing an app on mine, explaining exactly how to use it, teaching me how to wipe the logs if I ever needed to. He gave me a few pointers on how to handle Patricia and Michael. The main thing is not to show that anything has changed, he said. You are a broken, scared woman who's ready to do anything to protect her child. That's who you have to appear to be. But inside, remember that this is a game. A temporary game. And it will be over soon. We walked out of the coffee shop together. My father hugged me tight and kissed Noah on the top of his head. "Hold tight, sweetheart," he whispered in my ear. "I'm right here with you, even if you can't see me." I walked back toward the subway station, holding my son's hand. And for the first time in 2 months, I felt not just fear, but something else. Hope. That same evening, my father sat down at the desk in his home office. He took out an old notebook, the kind he used to use during his years in Army intelligence, and started writing down names, connections, organizational charts. The plan for the operation was coming together in his head like a puzzle he'd solved 1,000 times before. 20 years in intelligence had taught him to see the full picture, to understand how all the pieces fit together, and to identify exactly where to apply pressure. Patricia Williams, 62 years old, he wrote. Brother Robert Williams, 58 years old, 2 convictions for robbery and extortion. Released from prison 3 years ago. Criminal ties maintained. Likely organized the assault. Michael Williams, 34 years old, weak-willed, completely under his mother's control. High chance of recruitment if pressured correctly. He continued making notes. Emma's forged work documents. Need forensic analysis. Proof of forgery. The video with the child. Also forensics. Confirmed the editing. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Solomon. It's David. Yeah, it's been a minute. I know. Listen, I need help. Small, unofficial operation. Surveillance. Recording. Tech support. Can you do it? A pause. Excellent. We'll meet tomorrow and I'll give you all the details. He hung up and dialed the next number. Then another. Then another. By midnight, he had assembled a team of 4 people. All former colleagues from his intelligence days. All vetted, all trusted, all ready to help unofficially. The work started the very next day. Solomon, the former tech specialist, was tasked with installing listening devices in Patricia Williams's apartment. It took 2 days of careful observation to figure out her schedule and just 15 minutes of work while she was out shopping. The microphones were so small they couldn't be detected without specialized equipment. They transmitted sound to a recorder in a neighboring apartment that my father was able to rent through a real estate contact, Andre. A former field operative began surveillance on Robert Williams. Photos, video recordings, meetings with known associates. He documented every single movement and contact. Within a week, a thick folder of material was sitting on my father's desk. Owen, who now worked for a private forensic firm, took on the analysis of the forged documents and the edited video. He dissected the fake financial reports in just 2 days. The signatures were clearly forged, and the numbers had been altered using a graphic editor. The signs of editing were obvious to anyone who knew what to look for. The video with Noah was a classic montage, clips cut from different moments and spliced together to create a false narrative. Owen wrote an official forensic finding that could be used in court. Malcolm, whose police connections were especially useful, started gathering information on Robert's criminal past. Convictions, known associates, current activities. It turned out Robert hadn't shed his old habits at all. He was implicated in several new extortion cases in the area. But the evidence against him was thin. My father coordinated it all, analyzing the data and building the plan. After 2 weeks, he had the full picture. The recordings from Patricia's apartment were damning. She met regularly with her brother, and their conversations were caught perfectly by the hidden microphones. "That little fool thinks she can say no to me," Patricia said on one recording. "I'll squeeze her so hard she's signed that condo over on her knees." "We should scare her one more time," Robert replied. "So she knows this is serious. Maybe pay another visit to her old man." They laughed about my suffering. They called me names. They discussed exactly how they would split the money from selling the condo once they had it in their hands. My father listened to these recordings with a cold fury rising inside him. But he kept his emotions in complete check. He'd learned long ago that emotions were the enemy of operational work. Cold calculation was required, The plan was divided into 4 phases. Phase 1 was the marked money. My father used his old intelligence contacts to get access to specially marked bills. They looked like regular banknotes, but their serial numbers were logged in a law enforcement database. If these bills were found on someone during a search, would be direct evidence of a connection to a crime. I was to hand over my next paycheck using this money. Patricia would take it and pass some to her brother. Then it would just be a matter of technique. An anonymous tip to the police about Robert's extortion activities. A search warrant. The marked bills found in his apartment. Direct, undeniable connection. Phase 2 was the psychological trap. Patricia needed to feel confident to let her guard down completely. My father decided to fake his own medical emergency. A heart attack? Hospitalization? Let her think that one of the witnesses to her crimes might soon be dead. That the path was clear. This was when people started talking freely and acting bolder. And all of their conversations would be recorded. Phase 3 was recruiting Michael. My father understood that his son-in-law was the weak link in this whole operation. Michael wasn't a villain by nature, just weak-willed and terrified of his mother. He'd been under her thumb his entire life. My father needed to show Michael the truth. How he was being used and discarded, and offer him a way out. If Michael flipped, if he gave testimony and provided access to his mother's communications. The case was won. Phase 4 was the final trap. I would agree to sign the condo over. A meeting would be set at a real estate attorney's office. Patricia would arrive, probably with her brother's muscle for security, thinking she'd finally won. And waiting for her there would be operatives with a warrant and the full package of evidence. My father reviewed the plan one more time, made some final adjustments, and coordinated the details with his team. Everything had to run like clockwork. There was no room for mistakes. The execution began. I handed over my next paycheck, $1,500 in the marked bills, trying to keep my hands from shaking as Michael took them from me. He counted the money without even looking at me. Then drove straight to his mother's house. Patricia counted the cash with a satisfied nod. "Good girl, Emma," she said when Michael told her I'd been completely compliant. "See how well things go? When you just listen. Soon you'll sign those condo papers, and all your problems will be over. You'll live in peace." I stayed silent, keeping my eyes on the floor, playing the role of the broken woman perfectly. Inside, I was counting the days until this nightmare would end. 3 days later, my father went to the hospital. Solomon had arranged everything through a doctor contact, an official entry in the medical records. A private room for drips that were just saline. To anyone checking, it looked completely real. The news quickly reached Patricia through Michael, who called to ask about his father-in-law's health, playing the role of the concerned family member. Seriously, his heart. Patricia leaned back on her sofa when she heard the news. Well, at his age, that's not surprising. Robert, who was sitting next to her, smirked. Maybe the old man will die on his own and we won't have to deal with him. One less problem. Patricia lit a cigarette and nodded. The main thing is that Emma doesn't try to complain to anyone. Who would she complain to? Robert laughed. Her daddy's in the hospital dying. Her husband's on our side. We have all the evidence against her. She's not going anywhere. The entire conversation was recorded perfectly. The bug in the apartment worked flawlessly. My father, lying in his hospital bed, listened to the recording through headphones and nodded with grim satisfaction. Everything was going exactly according to plan. They were getting complacent, just like he knew they would. The following week, Malcolm arranged a routine check on Robert Williams through his police contacts. An anonymous tip about possible involvement in ongoing extortion activities was called in. A search warrant was obtained within 48 hours. The police arrived at Robert's apartment early in the morning. He opened the door in his boxers, groggy and aggressive. What the hell is this? Major Crimes Unit. The officer showed his badge. We have a search warrant for these premises. Step aside, please. The search lasted 2 hours. They found a lot. It's an unregistered firearm hidden in a closet. It's a small quantity of drugs in a drawer. But most importantly, they found the money, $1,500 in cash, neatly hidden in a coffee tin in the kitchen. The serial numbers were checked instantly against the database. "Where did this money come from?" the detective asked. "It's mine," Robert snarled. "I earned it, I see." "Well, these bills are linked to an active extortion investigation. You're going to have to come downtown with us and answer some questions." Robert was taken away in handcuffs. Patricia learned about her brother's arrest an hour later and went into an immediate panic. She called Michael, screaming into the phone. "Your Uncle Robert was arrested. They searched his place and found money I gave him. Did your wife rat us out? Did she tell someone?" "No, Mom, calm down." Michael tried to keep his voice steady. "She doesn't know anything. She's been home the whole time. She hasn't talked to anyone. Check her phone immediately. If I find out she told anyone, I swear Mom, calm down. I'll check everything." Michael came home and took my phone, going through everything. Calls, texts, emails, social media. I sat on the couch and watched him, my heart pounding. But I kept my face neutral and afraid, exactly like he expected. He found nothing. The secure messenger my father had installed was hidden so well that it was virtually undetectable unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. "It's clean," Michael reported back to his mother. "She hasn't called or texted anyone suspicious." Patricia calmed down slightly, but her anxiety remained. Her brother was under arrest. No charges had been officially filed yet, but the situation was serious. This was the moment my father chose to make his move with Michael. Malcolm arranged a meeting through a therapist Michael had consulted once, about a year ago, for anxiety issues. The therapist called him out of the blue. "Michael Williams." "Hello? Do you remember me? We worked together briefly last year. Listen, I have an unusual request. A friend of mine wants to speak with you personally. It's important. It concerns your family." Michael agreed to the meeting, thinking it was about some psychological issue, maybe something related to his anxiety. The meeting was set for a neutral coffee shop across town. My father arrived first and sat in a corner booth, waiting. When Michael walked in and saw who was sitting there, he turned white as a sheet. "What are you doing here?" he stammered. "You're supposed to be in the hospital. They said you had a heart attack. Sit down, Michael." My father gestured to the chair across from him. "We need to talk." Michael sat down slowly, clearly terrified. His hands were shaking. "Listen to me very carefully," my father said, his voice calm but hard as steel. "I know everything. The threats, the blackmail, the extortion, the forged documents, the edited video, everything. And I have proof." He placed a tablet on the table and pressed play. Patricia's voice filled the air. "That fool thinks she can refuse me. I'll squeeze her so hard she'll sign that condo over on her knees." Robert's voice came next. "We should scare her one more time, so she knows this is serious." Michael listened, his face growing paler by the second. That's not what you think," he said weakly. "Shut up and keep listening." The next recording played, Patricia's voice again. "Michael is such a doormat. I tell him do this, do that, and he runs right away like a trained dog. We broke Emma too. We'll get the condo soon. Sell it and split the money. Of course, we won't give Michael anything. What does he need it for? He's useless anyway." Michael covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. "Do you understand what's happening here?" My father's voice was harsh now. "Your mother is using you. You are destroying your own family, terrifying your wife, taking food out of your son's mouth. And for what? For a mother who laughs at you behind your back and plans to leave you with absolutely nothing?" I thought it was for the family," Michael whispered. "She said it was for Noah's future." "What family? You've turned your wife into a terrified slave? You're helping steal her inheritance. You are an accomplice to extortion, threats, and document forgery. Do you understand what that means, Michael? You're a criminal. When this all comes out, and it will come out, you're going to prison right alongside your mother." Michael sat in silence, gripping his head in his hands. "You have a choice." My father leaned closer. Either you keep following your mother and end up in the dock next to her and her brother, or you walk away from this right now. You give testimony, you help us gather the final evidence we need. And then you have a chance to stay out of prison and maybe, just maybe, salvage some kind of relationship with your son. What do you want from me? Michael's voice was barely audible. Your text messages with your mother. All of them. Every message discussing the plans, the threats, her brother's activities. Access to any documents she's been hiding. Your testimony about everything that's happened. And most importantly, you keep acting completely normal. She can't suspect a thing until we're ready to move. And if I refuse, then I hand everything I have to the police tomorrow morning. Your mother goes to trial. Her brother is already arrested and the charges are coming. You'll go down with them as an accomplice. Emma will divorce you and get full custody of Noah, and you'll see your son through the glass at the detention center. If you're lucky. Michael stared at the table for a long time. Minutes passed in complete silence. I'll give you the messages, he finally said, his voice hollow. And my testimony, but I don't want Emma to know. How low I fell. What I did to her. She already knows exactly what you did. But if you help us now, there's a chance your son might forgive you someday. Maybe. Michael nodded slowly. That same evening, my father had complete access to Patricia Williams's text messages. They were devastating. Plans to seize the condo. Discussions with her brother about intimidation tactics. Instructions to Michael about controlling his wife and taking her. Money. All of it was now documented and saved. All that remained was the final strike. Patricia was on edge. Her brother Robert had been arrested for over a week now, and the detective kept asking uncomfortable questions about where the money came from. She could feel the case turning dangerous, but she couldn't figure out where the leak was. Emma was quiet and subdued, clearly broken. Michael was obedient as always. David was in the hospital, and according to the latest updates from Michael, the doctors weren't optimistic about his recovery. Maybe it's time to finalize the condo situation, she said to Michael at dinner one evening. This is dragging on too long. You said Emma was still resisting? Yeah, Mom, she's scared. She keeps saying it's her grandmother's inheritance, that she can't just give it away. Tell her there's no more time to think. She needs to sign the papers this week. Robert's locked up and I need money for his lawyer. We'll sell the condo and get at least $350,000. That'll cover everything. What about me? Michael tried to keep his tone casual, but inside he was burning with shame and self-hatred. You'll be fine. Don't worry. The main thing is getting Emma to sign. Threaten her if you have to. Tell her we'll send that video to the daycare, or that we'll pay her father a visit in the hospital. Make her understand once and for all that she has no choice. Michael nodded, his hand in his pocket, pressing the record button on the small device my father had given him. The conversation was captured perfectly. He sent the file to my father via the secure channel within the hour. My father was discharged from the hospital 10 days after his fake heart attack. Solomon had arranged everything, including a doctor's note permitting home recovery but forbidding any physical exertion. When Michael drove him home, my father deliberately looked weak and drawn. Shuffling slowly, one hand on his chest, Patricia even sent a formal message through Michael, wishing him good health. My father smiled grimly when he read it. In reality, during those 10 days in the hospital, he had been coordinating every detail of the final phase of the operation. All the materials were ready. Recordings of conversations, text messages, Michael's testimony, forensic analysis confirming the documents were forged and the video was edited. Data on the marked bills found in Robert's apartment. Everything was in place. All that remained was to stage the finale and catch Patricia Williams. Red-handed. Malcolm negotiated with the detective handling Robert's case, showing him a carefully selected portion of the evidence. Enough to get him very interested, but not revealing all the cards yet. The detective, an experienced man in his 50s named Thomas Green, meticulously reviewed the materials. Systemic extortion, he murmured, setting down the papers. Threats, document forgery. This is serious time if we can prove everything in court. But we need a clean transaction. Caught in the act. That's exactly what I'm proposing, my father replied. A sting operation. The victim agrees to sign the condo over. A meeting is set at a real estate attorney's office. Patricia Williams will arrive, probably with one of her brother's associates for intimidation. The moment she pressures the victim to sign, thinking she's finally won. Your people walk in with a warrant. All the evidence is right there. All her words are recorded. The attempted coercion is documented. Detective Green thought for a moment. I'll need a prosecutor's authorization. And the attorney has to be in the loop, willing to cooperate. I'll find the right attorney. They'll agree to help once they understand the situation. When do you want to do this? 3 days from now, I'll be ready. They shook hands. The operation was on final approach. I was in the kitchen making dinner when a message arrived from my father on the Secure app. Get ready. Tomorrow, tell Michael you agreed to sign the condo over. The day after tomorrow, set the meeting with an attorney. It all ends in 3 days. Hold tight, sweetheart. I took a deep breath. 3 days. Just 3 more days of this nightmare. My hands were shaking as I deleted the message. I was terrified, more terrified than I'd ever been in my life. But I trusted my father completely. He wouldn't let me down. That evening, when Michael came home from work, I approached him with my eyes cast down, my voice small and defeated. I agree, I said quietly. I'll sign the papers for the condo. Michael froze, staring at me in shock. What? You're serious? I can't live like this anymore. Let them take the condo. Just let them leave Noah and me in peace. I'm tired of being afraid all the time. I'm tired of starving. Just let them have what they want. I give up. I spoke with such hopelessness, such utter defeat, that Michael, who knew the truth about what was really happening, almost believed me. I had become very good at acting over these past months. Or maybe 2 months of genuine fear had just taught me exactly what broken sounded like. Are you serious? Michael tried to sound normal, though he was inwardly clenching with shame. Yes, call your mother. Tell her I'm ready. Tell her to set up the meeting with an attorney. I just want it to be over. Michael went out onto the balcony and called Patricia. She answered on the first ring. Well, Mom, he said. Emma surrendered. She agrees to sign everything over. There was a pause, then a triumphant laugh on the other end of the line. I knew it. I knew that weakling wouldn't hold out forever. When does she want to meet the attorney? The day after tomorrow. Perfect. I'll organize everything. You make sure she doesn't change her mind before then. And tell her to bring all the original condo documents. Everything needs to be ready to process immediately. Okay? Mom. Patricia hung up and immediately dialed another number. My father, listening through the bug in her apartment, began recording. Hello, James. It's Patricia. Listen, I need your help the day after tomorrow. I need you to come to a real estate attorney's office and keep an eye on a transaction. My daughter-in-law is finally signing over her condo, and I'm worried she might try to back out at the last minute. I just need you to stand there and look intimidating. Make sure she knows we mean business. Just like when we dealt with her old man. Exactly like that. No problem. I'll be there. Meet me at the office at 2 o'clock. My father smiled grimly as he listened. Patricia was driving herself right into the trap. She was bringing a documented enforcer to the attorney's office to intimidate the victim. This was direct evidence of coercion. She couldn't have planned it better if she'd been trying to get herself arrested. He picked up his phone and called Detective Green. Day after tomorrow, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Victoria Morrison's office, 23 Garden Street. Patricia Williams will arrive with an associate named James Carter, known enforcer, history of battery and intimidation. He's going to threaten my daughter to force her to sign. Your people need to enter the moment the documents are presented. Understood? We'll be ready. The attorney, Victoria Morrison, was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her early 40s. When my father explained the situation and showed her the recordings and documents, she immediately agreed to cooperate. "I've been practicing real estate law for 15 years, she said. "I've seen a lot of ugly things. Inheritance disputes, family fights over property. But to so cynically try to steal someone's inheritance through threats and intimidation? This is a new low. What do you need me to do? Act completely normal. Accept the documents. Start the paperwork. Ask the standard questions. But at some point, ask Emma directly if she really wants to sign the condo over. Ask if there are any threats being made. Patricia won't be able to help herself. She'll either start making excuses or she'll push harder. That's when the police come in, okay? And if she manages to stay quiet, she won't. I know these types. When they're this close to victory, they become overconfident, arrogant. She will slip up. I guarantee it, all right? I'll help. This woman deserves to face justice." Everything was set. All that remained was to wait for the appointed day, the morning of the meeting. I barely slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Patricia's smug face, heard her threats echoing in my head. Noah woke up early, demanding attention, but I could hardly focus on anything he was saying. My mind kept racing through everything that could go wrong. What if the police didn't show up in time? What if Patricia figured out it was a trap? What if she had more people waiting outside? What if something happened to my father? Around 9 in the morning, a message arrived from my father on the Secure app. "All set. I'll be nearby in a car parked across the street from the office. Don't be afraid, sweetheart. You've got this. Just play your part one more time, and it's over. I'm so proud of you." I read the message 3 times, then deleted it. I took a deep breath and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at me looked exhausted, pale with dark circles under her eyes. But there was something else there too. Something I hadn't seen in months. Determination. I got Noah ready for daycare. Dropped him off with a longer hug than usual and went back home to prepare. Michael was tense all morning, pacing around the apartment, checking his phone every few minutes. He knew what was about to happen to his mother, and despite everything, I could see the conflict on his face.
Part of me wanted to feel sorry for him. He was about to watch his own mother get arrested. But then I remembered all those nights I went to bed hungry. All those times he took my paycheck and handed it over without a word. All those moments he stood by while his mother threatened to take my son away. No, I didn't feel sorry for him at all. At 1:30, we drove to the attorney's office. My hands were gripping the folder of documents so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The original deed to the condo, my grandmother's legacy, the thing Patricia had been trying to steal from me for months. Patricia was already waiting by the entrance when we arrived. She was dressed nicely, a professional-looking blazer and slacks, like she was attending a business meeting instead of committing a crime. Beside her stood a massive guy with a shaved head and a scar running down his left cheek. James Carter, the enforcer. He looked at me the way a wolf looks at a rabbit, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "Well, finally," Patricia said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You finally came to your senses. Did you bring all the documents?" "Yes." I showed her the folder, keeping my eyes down. "Excellent. Let's go inside and get this done." We walked into the building and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Victoria Morrison's office was at the end of the hallway, a small but professional space with a heavy wooden desk and shelves lined with legal books. A security camera was mounted in the corner, standard for a real estate attorney's office. Victoria greeted us with a professional smile and offered everyone a seat. Patricia sat directly across from me, with James standing behind her like a bodyguard. Michael sat to my left, his leg bouncing nervously under the table. "All right," Victoria said, opening her notepad. "I understand you wish to transfer the deed for your property. Emma Collins, do I have that correct?" "Yes," I answered softly. "And the property in question is the 2-bedroom condominium at 445 Maple Avenue, which belongs to you by right of inheritance from your grandmother, Margaret Collins." "Yes." And you wish to transfer ownership to whom? My husband, Michael Williams. I see. Victoria made a note. And is this your voluntary decision, Mrs. Collins? I hesitated, just for a moment. Patricia immediately cut in. Of course it's voluntary. She wants the condo in her husband's name. That's completely normal for a married couple. It's a family decision. I'm asking Mrs. Collins directly, Victoria said, her voice firm. Emma, is anyone forcing you to transfer this property? Are there any threats being made against you? I kept my eyes on the table. No, I want to do this myself. James, standing in the corner, coughed loudly. The sound was deliberate, threatening, a reminder that he was there. Victoria looked at me carefully, then at Patricia, then at the enforcer standing behind her. I could see her taking mental notes, documenting everything. Very well, she said. I'll need to review all the documents. The deed, your identification, your marriage certificate. I opened the folder with trembling hands and placed the documents on the table one by one. Victoria began reviewing them, making notes, taking her time. Patricia was getting visibly impatient, tapping her fingers on the armrest of her chair. How long is this going to take? She finally snapped. It's a simple transfer. Just have her sign the papers and be done with it. I need to follow proper legal procedures, ma'am, Victoria replied calmly. This is a significant property transfer. I have to ensure everything is in order. She turned back to me. Mrs. Collins, do you understand that after this transfer, you will lose all ownership rights to this property? It will belong entirely to your husband, and he will be free to do with it as he pleases. Sell it, transfer it to someone else, anything. I understand. And you're absolutely certain this is what you want to do. I could feel Patricia's eyes boring into the side of my head. James shifted his weight behind her, cracking his knuckles. Yes, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. All right then. Victoria slid a document across the table toward me. I'll need you to read through this agreement carefully and sign in 3 places. Here, here, and here. She pointed to each signature line with her pen. I picked up the pen. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. I made the first signature, then the second. I raised the pen over the 3rd signature line and stopped. What is it? Patricia's voice was sharp. Why are you stopping? Sign it. I don't know. Tears started falling from my eyes onto the paper. This was my grandmother's. She left it to me. She wanted me to have it. Oh, for God's sake. Patricia leaned forward, her face twisted with frustration. We've been over this 100 times. Sign the paper, Emma, now. Mrs. Williams, Victoria said firmly, please let your daughter-in-law make her own decision. She already made her decision. She agreed to sign. Tell her, Michael. Tell her to sign it. Michael opened his mouth, but no words came out. He just sat there, frozen. Patricia grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my skin. Listen to me, you ungrateful little fool. We had a deal. You sign these papers today, or have you forgotten what happens if you don't? Have you forgotten about that video? About what happened to your father? About those nice men who like to stand outside Noah's daycare? Victoria stood up from her desk. Mrs. Williams, I'm going to have to ask you to release her arm and calm down. You are not permitted to. Shut up, Patricia snapped. This is family business. Emma knows what she needs to do. Don't you, Emma? You know what's best for everyone. Sign the paper and all of this goes away. Your father stays safe. Your son stays safe. Everyone's happy. But if you don't sign... She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Well, you know what happens then. James took a step forward, looming over the table. The lady asked you to sign, he said, his voice low and menacing. I think you should sign. The door to the office burst open. 3 men in plain clothes walked in, followed by Detective Green and 2 uniformed police officers. The room suddenly felt very small and very crowded. Patricia Williams? Detective Green pulled out his badge and held it up. Major Crimes Unit, you are under arrest on suspicion of extortion, making criminal threats and coercion. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Patricia's face went white. All the color drained from her cheeks in an instant. What extortion? I didn't do anything. This is a private family matter. We have recordings of your conversations, ma'am, text messages, witness testimony, physical evidence linking you to multiple criminal acts. Detective Green nodded to the officers. Take her. This is insane. Emma, tell them. Tell them you wanted to sign the condo over. Tell them this was your choice. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking but holding me steady. I looked Patricia Williams directly in the eyes for the first time in months. You took 2 months of my life, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. You drove me to poverty. You made me afraid to answer my own phone. You threatened my child. You had my father beaten. You tried to steal my grandmother's legacy. And you thought I would just break. You thought I would give up. I took a breath. But you were wrong. I'm not alone, and I never was. Patricia's face contorted with rage. You stupid little. That's enough. Detective Green stepped between us. Mrs. Williams, you're coming with us. James tried to bolt for the door, but 2 of the plainclothes officers were on him in a second. He struggled briefly, but they had him in handcuffs before he could take 3 steps. James Carter, you're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit extortion and intimidation. You have the right to remain silent. Patricia was screaming now as they led her out of the office. Michael, do something. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them. Michael sat frozen in his chair, his head down. Michael, Patricia's voice was getting more desperate. Say something, defend your mother. Finally, Michael looked up. His face was pale, his eyes red. I gave them testimony, Mom, he said quietly. I told them everything. The threats, the blackmail, the forged documents, what you did to Emma's father. Everything. Patricia stopped struggling. She stared at her son like she'd never seen him before. You betrayed me, your own mother. You made me betray my wife and my son. You used me. You laughed at me behind my back. I heard the recordings, Mom. I know what you really think of me. His voice cracked. I was your puppet my whole life, but not anymore. I won't be your puppet anymore. You ungrateful, worthless. Get her out of here, Detective Green ordered. They dragged Patricia Williams out of the office, still screaming threats and curses. James Carter followed behind, silent and sullen. The door closed behind them, and suddenly the room was quiet. I stood there for a long moment, not quite believing it was real. My legs gave out, and I sank back into my chair. Mrs. Collins, Detective Green approached me. We're going to need you to come down to the station and give an official statement. Can you do that? Yes, I managed to say. Yes, I can do that. Take your time, there's no rush. Victoria Morrison came around from behind her desk and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. You did good, honey. That took real courage. I couldn't respond. The tears were coming too fast. I walked out of the office building on shaky legs. The afternoon sun was bright, almost blinding after the dim interior. I squinted against the light, trying to orient myself. My father's car was parked across the street, just like he'd promised. He got out when he saw me and walked over quickly. Without a word, he wrapped his arms around me in a tight hug. I buried my face in his shoulder and sobbed, releasing all the fear and tension and pain I'd been holding inside for so long. It's over, he whispered, stroking my hair. It's all over now. You did it, sweetheart. You were so brave. I was so scared, Dad. The whole time I was terrified. I know, but you didn't let the fear stop you. That's what courage is. Not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. I pulled back and looked at him. How can I ever thank you? You saved my life. You saved Noah's life. You're my daughter. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. Nothing. We stood there for a long moment, just holding each other. The world went on around us, cars passing, people walking by, the city going about its business. But for us, time had stopped. The nightmare was finally over. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of interviews, forensic examinations, and court procedures. Robert Williams, who was already in custody for the marked money found in his apartment, was now facing additional charges for organizing the assault on my father. The evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted quickly, his prior criminal record counting as an aggravating circumstance. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in a maximum security prison. Patricia Williams was charged with 3 separate counts: extortion, document forgery, and making criminal threats. The investigation was thorough, with Detective Green and his team leaving no stone unturned. Michael's detailed testimony proved crucial, recounting every episode of the blackmail scheme, every threat his mother had made, every demand for money. My father provided the recordings that captured Patricia's words perfectly, her own voice condemning her. The forensic analysis confirmed beyond any doubt that my work documents had been falsified, and that the video of me with Noah was a heavily edited montage designed to make me look like an abusive mother. The case against Patricia Williams was airtight. In the meantime, my own life started to return to normal. My company's management reviewed the forensic evidence, proving the financial documents had been forged. They apologized profusely for any suspicion that had fallen on me, and not only reinstated my position, but gave me a substantial raise as compensation for the ordeal I'd been through. "We should have seen something was wrong," my boss said. "You were clearly suffering and we didn't notice. That's on us." I didn't blame them. How could they have known? I'd hidden it so well, too terrified to let anyone see the truth. I filed for divorce from Michael. The process was surprisingly quick and straightforward. Michael didn't contest anything. He admitted his guilt, acknowledged everything he'd done, and agreed to all my terms. He seemed almost relieved, like a man who had finally put down a burden he'd been carrying his whole life. "I know you can't forgive me," he said during our final meeting to sign the divorce papers. "And I don't expect you to. What I did was unforgivable. I let my mother control me my whole life, and I hurt you and Noah because I was too weak to stand up to her." I looked at him for a long moment. "You're right, I can't forgive you. Not yet, maybe not ever. But you did the right thing in the end. You gave testimony. You helped stop her. That counts for something. I just want to be part of Noah's life. Not as your husband, I know that's over, but as his father. Can you give me that chance?" I thought about it. Noah deserved to know his father, even if that father had made terrible mistakes. "Supervised visits," I said finally. "Once a week with my father present, if you prove you've really changed. If you show me you can be a good father without your mother's influence, then we'll talk about more." "Thank you, Emma, thank you." He reached out his hand. I didn't take it. "This isn't forgiveness, Michael. This is a chance for Noah, not for you." He nodded and withdrew his hand. "I understand." Patricia Williams's trial was held 3 months after her arrest. The courtroom was packed with spectators, reporters, and curious onlookers. I sat in the front row with my father beside me, his steady presence giving me strength. The prosecution presented a devastating case. Recording after recording was played for the jury, Patricia's own voice damning her with every word. "That fool thinks she can refuse me. I'll squeeze her so hard she'll sign that condo over on her knees. We should scare her one more time, so she knows this is serious. Michael is such a doormat, we won't give him anything. He's useless anyway." The forensic expert testified about the forged documents and the edited video. The detective explained how the marked money had been traced from my paycheck to Robert's apartment. Michael took the stand and confirmed everything, his voice shaking but clear. And finally, I testified. I told the jury everything. The threats, the fear, the constant surveillance, the hunger, the desperation. I told them about the night I stood in my kitchen wondering if my son and I would eat that week. I told them about the terror I felt every time someone knocked on my door. I told them about the video Patricia threatened to use to take my child away. By the time I finished, several members of the jury were wiping tears from their eyes. Patricia's defense attorney tried to paint her as a concerned grandmother who only wanted to secure her grandchild's future. But the evidence was too strong, her own words too damning. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. On the count of extortion, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of document forgery, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of making criminal threats, we find the defendant guilty. Patricia collapsed in her chair, all her arrogance and confidence finally shattered. The judge sentenced her to 5 years of probation, given her age and lack of prior criminal convictions, but with strict conditions. A restraining order prohibited her from coming within 300 feet of me, Noah, or my parents. Any violation would result in immediate imprisonment. She also had to pay restitution, returning all the money she'd taken from me over those 2 months. But the real punishment was what she'd lost. Her son, who refused to speak to her anymore. Her grandson, whom she would never see again. Her reputation, destroyed forever. Her savings, spent on legal fees and restitution. As she was led out of the courtroom, Patricia looked over at me one last time. I expected to see hatred in her eyes, or rage, or at least defiance. But all I saw was a broken old woman who had gambled everything on greed and lost. I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, not even relief, just emptiness. This chapter of my life was closed. Outside the courthouse, my father was waiting for me. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, the kind of evening that made you grateful to be alive. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Empty," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel happy or relieved or something, but I just feel tired." "That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline for months. Now that it's over, your body and mind need time to recover. The other feelings will come. Give yourself time." He put his arm around my shoulders as we walked to his car. "What happens now, Dad?" Now you live your life. You raise your son. You go back to work. You heal. And you remember that no matter what happens, you're not alone. You never have to face anything alone again." I leaned my head against his shoulder. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." "That's what fathers are for, sweetheart." 6 months passed. I received a promotion at work, a big one. My new title was Senior Financial Analyst, with my own office and a team of 3 people reporting to me. My salary had nearly doubled from what it was before the nightmare began. I bought a new car, a practical SUV perfect for driving Noah to school and soccer practice and all the other activities he was getting into. I found a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood, with a playground just a block away and good schools nearby. I rented out my grandmother's condo for $1,800 a month, a nice passive income that went straight into Noah's college fund. Noah was thriving. He'd started kindergarten and loved it, coming home every day with stories about his new friends and the games they played at recess. He was learning to read, sounding out words with such concentration that it made my heart swell with pride. Michael came to visit every Saturday, just like we'd agreed. At first, my father was always present, watching from across the room, making sure everything was okay. But as the months passed and Michael proved himself, I started allowing unsupervised visits. He took Noah to the zoo, to the movies, to the park. He showed up on time every time. He never badmouthed me to our son, never tried to manipulate the situation. He was just a father trying to make up for lost time. I didn't forgive him. I wasn't sure I ever would. But I accepted that people could change, that they could recognize their mistakes and try to do better. Michael was trying. That counted for something. One Saturday evening, after Michael had dropped Noah off from their day together, my son came running into the kitchen where I was making dinner. Mommy, look what Daddy got me." He held up a little stuffed elephant, gray and soft with big floppy ears. "That's wonderful, baby. Did you have a good time?" "The best. We went to the aquarium and saw sharks and jellyfish and a giant octopus. And Daddy let me get ice cream and we walked along the water and fed the birds." I smiled, watching his face light up with excitement. This was what mattered. Noah being happy, Noah having good memories. "I'm glad you had fun, sweetheart. Now go wash your hands. Dinner's almost ready." He ran off, clutching his elephant, and I turned back to the stove, still smiling. Life was good. My father visited almost every day. He'd retired from his consulting work a few months after the trial, deciding that he'd done enough. Now he spent his time reading, gardening, and most importantly, being a grandfather. He and Noah had a special bond. They played chess together, even though Noah barely understood the rules yet. They built model airplanes and went fishing at the lake. My father told him stories, carefully edited versions of his adventures in Army intelligence. Tales of bravery and cleverness that made Noah's eyes go wide with wonder. "Grandpa, were you really a spy?" Noah asked one evening, sitting on my father's lap. "Something like that, buddy. I worked for our country, keeping people safe." "Did you catch bad guys?" "Sometimes, but the most important thing I ever did was keep my family safe. That's what really matters." Noah nodded solemnly, like he understood perfectly. I watched them from the kitchen doorway, my heart full. My father had saved me, saved Noah, saved everything. I could never repay him for that, but I could make sure he knew how much he was loved. "Dad," I said, walking over to them, "dinner's ready. Noah, go wash up." Noah scampered off, and my father stood up, stretching his back. "You're a good mother, Emma," he said. "I'm proud of you." "I learned from the best parents," I replied, hugging him. "You and Mom taught me everything." He held me tight for a moment, then pulled back, his eyes suspiciously shiny. "Come on," he said gruffly, trying to hide his emotion. "Let's eat before it gets cold." 1 year after Patricia Williams was led out of that attorney's office in handcuffs, I was standing in the kitchen of my beautiful apartment, looking out the window at the city lights. Noah was asleep in his room, clutching his stuffed elephant. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, safe. I thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the pain, the hopelessness. The moment I'd run into my father at the subway station, convinced that my life was over. The long weeks of pretending to be broken while my father worked behind the scenes. The terror of that final meeting at the attorney's office. The relief when the police walked through that door. And now here I was, alive, free, happy. The nightmare hadn't broken me. It had made me stronger. I'd learned that I could survive things I never thought I could survive. I'd learned to ask for help when I needed it, to trust the people who loved me. I'd learned that no matter how dark things seemed, there was always a way forward. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Breakfast tomorrow. I'll make pancakes for Noah." I smiled and typed back. "We'll be there at 9. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, sweetheart, always." I set down my phone and looked out the window again. The city stretched out before me, millions of lives unfolding in millions of apartments, people loving and fighting and dreaming and hopping. And I was one of them. Just a regular person with a regular life, raising her son, doing her job, loving her family. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. 2 years had passed since that day at the attorney's office. 2 years of healing, growing, rebuilding. 2 years of learning to trust again, to sleep through the night without waking up in a cold sweat, to answer the phone without my heart racing. 2 years of watching Noah grow from a toddler into a bright, curious little boy who asked a million questions about everything and laughed at the silliest jokes. I was sitting in my new office at work, looking at the nameplate on my door. Emma Collins, Director of Financial Planning. The promotion had come through just 3 months ago, and I still couldn't quite believe it was real. My own corner office with a view of the city, a team of 12 people reporting to me, a salary that would have seemed impossible back when I was scraping by on $75 a week. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Don't forget dinner tonight. Your mother is making her famous lasagna. Noah's been asking about it all week." I smiled and typed back, "Wouldn't miss it. See you at 6. Life had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Work during the week, family dinners on Saturdays, lazy Sundays at the park with Noah. Michael still visited every Saturday, and our arrangement had settled into something almost friendly. We weren't friends exactly, but we could talk to each other without tension, coordinate schedules for Noah without arguments, even share a laugh sometimes about something silly our son had said. Michael had remarried about 8 months ago, a nice woman named Sarah who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She was kind and patient, and most importantly, she was good with Noah. I'd been worried at first, afraid of what it would mean for my son to have a stepmother, but Sarah never tried to replace me. She understood her role, and she filled it with grace. Noah talks about you all the time, she told me once, when she came along to pick him up for a weekend visit. He says you're the best mom in the whole world. He's biased, I said, but I was smiling. All kids are biased about their moms. Doesn't make it less true. I decided I liked Sarah. Patricia Williams was a ghost from the past now. She lived alone in a small apartment on the other side of the city, supported by Social Security and the meager savings she had left after paying her legal fees and restitution. Michael visited her occasionally out of obligation, but he told me those visits were short and uncomfortable. She'd never apologized, never truly acknowledged what she'd done. She still believed she was the victim, that the world had treated her unfairly. Robert was still in prison, with at least 4 more years left on his sentence. From what Michael heard through old family connections, he wasn't doing well. Prison was hard on a man his age. I didn't think about them much anymore. They were part of a closed chapter, a book I'd finished and put back on the shelf. Occasionally, something would remind me of that time, a certain smell or a certain tone of voice, and I'd feel a flash of the old fear. But it passed quickly, like a cloud crossing the sun. I'd learned to let go. My mother had been a rock through all of this. She'd been devastated when she finally learned the full truth about what I'd been through, angry that I hadn't told her sooner, heartbroken that I'd suffered alone. But she channeled all those emotions into support, calling me every day during the trial, helping with Noah whenever I needed it, making sure I knew I was loved. "I'm so proud of you, Emma," she told me one night, when we were sitting on her porch drinking wine after Noah had gone to sleep. "You went through hell and came out stronger. Not everyone could do that." "I had help," I said. "I had Dad, I had you." "You had yourself too. Don't forget that. You made the choice to fight back. You made the choice to trust your father with the truth. You made the choice to keep going even when you were terrified. That was all you, sweetheart." I leaned my head on her shoulder, feeling like a little girl again. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, baby. Always and forever." Noah's 7th birthday party was on a bright Saturday in May, held at the park near our apartment. We'd rented one of the pavilions, decorated it with balloons and streamers, set up a table full of his favorite foods. 20 kids from his school came, along with parents and grandparents and friends. My father manned the grill, flipping hamburgers and hot dogs with military precision. My mother organized the games, leading the children through musical chairs, and pinned the tail on the donkey with the energy of someone half her age. Michael and Sarah brought a huge cake shaped like a dinosaur, Noah's current obsession. I stood back and watched it all unfold, my heart so full it ached. "Mommy, Mommy," Noah came running up to me, his face smeared with frosting. "Did you see my cake? It's a T-Rex. Daddy said it's the best cake ever." "I saw it, baby. It's amazing. Are you having a good birthday?" "The best birthday ever." He threw his arms around my waist and hugged me tight. "Thank you, Mommy." "I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in the whole world." He ran off to rejoin his friends, and I blinked back tears. Happy tears. My father came over, wiping his hands on his apron. "You okay?" "Better than okay," I said. "Look at him, Dad. He's so happy. He's got friends, family, people who love him. He's got a normal, happy childhood. That's all I ever wanted for him." "You gave him that, Emma. You fought for it." "We fought for it, together." He put his arm around me, and we stood there watching Noah play, the sun warm on our faces, the sound of children's laughter filling the air. It was perfect. 3 months after Noah's birthday party, something unexpected happened. I was at a coffee shop near my office, waiting in line for my usual morning latte, when someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Excuse me, but aren't you Emma Collins?" I turned around and found myself face to face with a man about my age, tall with kind eyes and a friendly smile. He looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place him. "Yes, that's me. Do I know you?" "Sort of. We went to high school together. Lincoln High. I'm William Patterson. We had chemistry together senior year." The memory clicked into place. William Patterson. Will. The quiet kid who sat in the back of the class and always got the highest grades on every test. He'd been nice, I remembered, always willing to help when someone was struggling with the material. "Oh my gosh, Will, I remember you. How are you?" I'm good, I'm good. I moved back to the city about a year ago. I'm a pediatrician now, got a practice over on 5th Street. A pediatrician, that's wonderful. Yeah, I love it. Kids are great. Honest, they don't play games. He paused, looking a little nervous. Listen, this is probably really forward, but would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? Catch up on the last 15 years. I hesitated. It had been a long time since I'd even thought about dadding. After everything that happened with Michael, I'd convinced myself that I was fine on my own, that I didn't need anyone else. But something about Will's open, honest face made me want to say yes. "I'd like that," I heard myself say. "Here's my number." We exchanged phones and typed in our contact information. Will was grinning when he handed mine back. "Great, I'll text you, maybe this weekend." "Sure, I'd like that." He got his coffee and waved goodbye, and I stood there feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Butterflies. Our first date was at a quiet Italian restaurant downtown. We talked for 3 hours, the conversation flowing easily, naturally. Will told me about medical school, about his years as a resident, about why he decided to specialize in pediatrics. I told him about my work, about Noah, about my parents. I didn't tell him about Patricia and Michael, not yet. That was a story for later, when I trusted him more. "You have a son," Will's face lit up. "That's great. How old is he?" 7. He's amazing. The best thing that ever happened to me. I'd love to meet him sometime. I mean, not right away, obviously. I know you need to be careful about that stuff, but eventually, if things go well. I appreciated that he understood. So many men would have been put off by a single mother, or worse, would have pushed to meet the child too soon. Will got it. He was patient, respectful, thoughtful. We went on more dates. Coffee, dinner, a movie, a walk along the waterfront. Each time I felt myself opening up a little more, letting down the walls I'd built around my heart. After about 2 months of dadding, I told him the truth about what had happened with Patricia and Michael. We were sitting on a bench in the park, watching the sun set over the lake, and the words just came pouring out. Will listened without interrupting, his face growing more serious as the story went on. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Emma," he finally said, "I can't even imagine what you went through. The fear, the helplessness, and then finding the courage to fight back, to take your life back. You're incredible. You know that, right?" "I don't feel incredible. I just feel like a mom who did what she had to do." "That's what makes you incredible. You didn't do it for glory or recognition. You did it for your son. That's the purest kind of courage there is." He reached over and took my hand, and I let him. "I'm not going anywhere, Emma. If you'll have me, I want to be part of your life, yours and Noah's. I know I have to earn your trust, and I'm willing to do that, however long it takes." I looked at him, this kind, patient man who had appeared in my life when I least expected it, and I felt something shift inside me, the last of the walls crumbling down. "I'd like that," I said. "I'd really like that." I introduced Will to Noah on a sunny Saturday afternoon, about 3 months after we started dadding. We kept it casual, just a trip to the zoo, nothing too serious. I told Noah that Mommy had a friend who wanted to meet him, and Noah, always eager to make new friends, was excited. Will was perfect with him. Patient, playful, never trying too hard. He let Noah lead the way, answered his million questions about the animals with genuine enthusiasm, bought him a stuffed penguin from the gift shop. "He knows a lot about animals," Noah whispered to me when Will went to get us some ice cream. "He does. He's a doctor for kids. He helps children when they're sick." "Like a superhero." I smiled. Exactly like a superhero. When Will came back with the ice cream, Noah looked up at him with big, serious eyes. "My mom says you're a superhero." Will laughed. "I don't know about that, but I try to help people. That's the important thing." "I want to help people when I grow up too. Maybe I'll be a doctor like you." "That would be amazing, buddy. The world always needs more good doctors." Noah smiled, clearly pleased, and went back to his ice cream. Will caught my eye and grinned, and I felt my heart do that fluttering thing again. This was going to work. I could feel it. My father approved of Will immediately. They met at one of our Saturday family dinners, and by the end of the evening, they were deep in conversation about military history, a shared passion I hadn't known they had. That young man is solid, my father told me later, when Will had gone home and Noah was in bed. I can tell he's got integrity. High praise from you, Dad. I don't give praise lightly, you know that, but Will's the real deal. He looks at you like you hung the moon, Emma, and more importantly, he's patient with Noah. That's what matters. I really like him, Dad. I think maybe I more than like him. My father smiled. Then I'm happy for you, sweetheart. You deserve someone who treats you right. After everything you've been through, you deserve happiness. I hugged him tight. Thank you, Dad, for everything. I couldn't have gotten through any of this without you. You're stronger than you know, Emma. I just helped you see it. Will and I had been together for a year when he proposed. It happened on a quiet evening at home, just the two of us after Noah had gone to sleep. We were sitting on the couch, watching a movie, when Will suddenly paused it and turned to face me. Emma, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. My heart started racing. Okay. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. When he opened it, a beautiful diamond ring sparkled in the lamplight. Emma Collins, you are the most amazing woman I've ever known. You're strong, kind, brave, and the best mother I've ever seen. This past year has been the happiest of my life, and I can't imagine my future without you in it. Will you marry me? I couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down my face, happy tears, overwhelmed tears. All I could do was nod. Is that a yes? Will asked, his own eyes shining. Yes, I finally managed to choke out. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger and kissed me, and in that moment, I felt like everything in my life had led to this. All the pain, all the fear, all the struggle. It had all been leading me here to this man, to this love, to this second chance at happiness. We got married the following spring, in a small ceremony at my parents' house. Noah was the ring bearer, walking down the aisle with the most serious expression on his little face, carrying the rings on a silk pillow like they were the most precious things in the world. My father walked me down the aisle, his arm steady under mine, his eyes suspiciously bright. I'm so proud of you, he whispered as we approached the altar. Your grandmother would be too. I squeezed his arm, unable to speak. Will was waiting for me under an arch of white flowers, looking at me like I was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Michael was there too, sitting in the back with Sarah, and when our eyes met, he gave me a small nod, an acknowledgement, an acceptance. We were all moving forward now. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. We wrote our own vows, promising to love and support each other through whatever life threw at us. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Noah cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, my father gave a toast. To Emma and Will, he said, raising his glass. Emma, you are the strongest person I know. You faced challenges that would have broken most people, and you came out the other side with grace and courage. Will, you're a lucky man to have her, and I know you know that. I've watched you with my daughter and my grandson, and I've seen the way you love them. That's all a father can ask for. So here's to a lifetime of happiness together. May your days be filled with love, laughter, and all the joy you deserve. Everyone raised their glasses, and I wiped away tears. Later that night, after the guests had gone home and Noah was asleep in his room, Will and I sat on the porch of my parents' house, looking up at the stars. So, Mrs. Patterson, Will said, squeezing my hand, how does it feel to be married? Amazing, I said. Like everything finally makes sense, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. That's how I feel too. He kissed my forehead. I promise you, Emma, I will spend the rest of my life making you happy. You and Noah both. You're my family now. And you're ours. We sat there in comfortable silence, the warm night air wrapping around us like a blanket. Somewhere in the distance, a nightbird was singing. The world was peaceful, calm, full of possibility. I thought about everything that had led me to this moment. The dark days with Patricia and Michael, the fear and desperation. The moment I'd run into my father at the subway station. The long months of planning and waiting. The triumph in that attorney's office. And then the rebuilding. The slow, patient work of putting my life back together, finding my strength, raising my son, opening my heart again. It had all been worth it. Every painful moment, every sleepless night, every tear I'd shed. It had all led me here to this porch, to this man, to this life. I was finally, truly happy. 3 years into my marriage with Will, life had settled into something beautiful. We'd bought a house together, a charming 4-bedroom colonial with a big backyard and a wraparound porch. It was in a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets and friendly neighbors who waved when you drove by. The kind of place where kids rode their bikes until sunset and families gathered for barbecues on summer weekends. Noah had his own room, decorated with dinosaur posters and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. He was 10 now, tall for his age, with my eyes and his father's stubborn chin. He'd joined the soccer team at school and discovered a passion for science, constantly asking questions about how things worked and why the sky was blue and what would happen if you could travel faster than light. Will was patient with every question, taking time to explain things in ways Noah could understand, nurturing that natural curiosity. Watching them together made my heart swell. Will had become a real father to Noah, not replacing Michael, but filling a different role. A steady, constant presence in our home, someone Noah could count on every single day. Michael still came around for his visits, though less frequently now that Noah was older and had his own social life to manage. Their relationship had evolved into something comfortable, more like friendship than the intense bond of early childhood. Noah loved his father, but he'd also come to love Will, and somehow, miraculously, there was room in his heart for both. "Mom," Noah said one evening, looking up from his homework at the kitchen table, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart, anything." "Why did you and Dad get divorced? You never really told me." I set down the dish I was drying and sat across from him. This conversation had been coming for years, and I'd thought a lot about how to handle it. Noah was old enough now to understand more, but I didn't want to poison him against his father. "That's a complicated question, baby. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Your dad made some mistakes, and so did I. We weren't happy together anymore, and we decided it was better for everyone, especially you, if we lived apart. But you're happy now, right? With Will." "Very happy. And your dad is happy with Sarah. Sometimes things have to end so better things can begin." Noah thought about this for a moment. "Grandpa told me once that you went through something really hard, before I was old enough to remember. He said you were really brave." I smiled, making a mental note to talk to my father about what he was sharing with Noah. Grandpa exaggerates sometimes, but yes, there was a difficult time. And yes, I got through it, with help from Grandpa and Grandma and a lot of other people who love me. "Will you tell me about it someday, the whole story?" "Someday, when you're a little older. It's not an easy story, but it has a happy ending. That's the important part." Noah nodded, seemingly satisfied with that answer. "I'm glad it has a happy ending, Mom. I'm glad you're happy." "Me too, baby, me too." My father turned 70 that year, and we threw him a surprise party at our house. It took weeks of planning and coordination, keeping the secret from a man who had spent 20 years in Army intelligence and could sniff out a lie from a mile away. But somehow, miraculously, we pulled it off. When he walked through the front door expecting a quiet family dinner and found 50 people shouting, "Surprise!" the look on his face was worth every moment of stress. "You sneaky little devils," he said, shaking his head and laughing. "I had no idea, none at all." "We learned from the best," I said, hugging him tight. "Happy birthday, Dad." The party was wonderful. Old friends from his Army days came, men I'd heard stories about but never met, grizzled veterans with firm handshakes and sharp eyes who looked at my father with deep respect. Colleagues from his consulting years showed up, along with neighbors and family friends. My mother was in her element, playing hostess, making sure everyone had food and drinks. Will had organized a slideshow of photos from my father's life, images I'd never seen before. My father as a young soldier, lean and serious in his uniform. My parents' wedding day, both of them so young and hopeful. Baby pictures of me that made everyone coo and laugh. And more recent photos, my father with Noah, teaching him to fish, playing chess, reading bedtime stories. When the slideshow ended, my father stood up to speak. "I've lived a long life," he said, his voice steady but emotional. 70 years. I've seen things most people only read about in books. I've done things I can't talk about, even now. But the greatest accomplishment of my life isn't any mission or operation or award. He looked at me, then at Noah, then at my mother. The greatest accomplishment of my life is my family. My wife, who has put up with me for 45 years and somehow still loves me. My daughter, who is the bravest person I've ever known. And my grandson, who gives me hope for the future every single day. His voice cracked slightly. I've spent my whole life protecting this country, but nothing compares to protecting the people I love. That's what matters. That's what it's all about. He raised his glass. To family, the only thing worth fighting for. Everyone raised their glasses in response, and I wiped tears from my eyes. Will squeezed my hand under the table. Later that night, after the guests had gone home and Noah was in bed, I found my father sitting alone on the back porch, looking up at the stars. "Mind if I join you?" I asked. "Never," he patted the chair beside him. "Beautiful night." "It was a beautiful party. Did you really have no idea?" "Not a clue. You got me good, sweetheart. I'm losing my edge in my old age." "You'll never lose your edge, Dad. You're the sharpest person I know." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the crickets and the distant hum of traffic. "Dad," I finally said, "I never properly thanked you for everything you did, for saving me and Noah, for giving me my life back." "You don't need to thank me, Emma. You're my daughter. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you." "I know, but I want you to know that I understand what you sacrificed, the risks you took, the favors you called in. You put everything on the line for me, and I'll never forget that." He turned to look at me, his eyes serious. "When I was in intelligence, I saw a lot of terrible things. People doing unspeakable things to each other for power, for money, for ideology. After a while, you start to wonder what it's all for, what you're really fighting for." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "And then I'd come home. I'd see you playing in the backyard, or I'd watch you sleep, and I'd remember. I was fighting for you, for your future, for the chance that you'd grow up in a world that was a little bit safer, a little bit better." And when Patricia threatened that future, I said quietly, "I couldn't let her win. I couldn't let anyone take away what you'd built. Your grandmother left you that condo because she believed in you. She wanted you to have security, independence. Patricia tried to steal that, and she tried to steal your son, your peace, your sanity. I wasn't going to let that happen." "You saved us, Dad." "No, you saved yourself. I just provided the tools. You're the one who found the courage to use them. You're the one who held on through those terrible months, playing your part, trusting the plan. That was all you, Emma." I leaned my head on his shoulder, just like I used to do when I was a little girl. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart, more than you'll ever know." Life continued in its steady rhythm. Noah finished elementary school and started middle school, navigating the awkward years of adolescence with remarkable grace. He shot up 6 inches in one summer, his voice cracking and deepening, his interests shifting from dinosaurs to space exploration to video games. He made the school soccer team as a starting midfielder and brought home report cards full of A's and B's. I got another promotion at work, this time to vice president of finance. It was a huge responsibility, overseeing a team of 30 people and a budget of millions of dollars. Some days were stressful, overwhelming, exhausting. But I'd learned to handle stress, to compartmentalize, to take things one step at a time. If I could survive what Patricia put me through, I could survive anything. Will's pediatric practice was thriving. He'd taken on 2 new partners and expanded into a larger office space. He came home tired most evenings, but it was a good tired, the kind that came from doing meaningful work. He still found time for Noah, helping with homework, attending soccer games, taking him on fishing trips with my father. My parents celebrated their 48th wedding anniversary with a trip to Hawaii, their first real vacation in years. They sent photos of themselves on the beach, looking relaxed and happy, my father's arm around my mother's waist. They'd been through so much together, and their love was still strong. "That's what I want," I told Will, showing him the photos. "That's what I want us to be in 48 years. We'll be pushing 90, he laughed. "So, we'll be 90 and still in love. Sounds perfect to me." "It does sound perfect," he agreed, pulling me close. "I'm holding you to that." Sometimes, late at night, I still thought about Patricia. I wondered what her life was like now. Alone in her small apartment, estranged from her son and grandson, all her schemes and manipulations having come to nothing. I wondered if she ever regretted what she'd done, if she ever looked back and wished she'd made different choices. I didn't hate her anymore. The hate had burned away years ago, replaced by something closer to pity. She'd been so consumed by greed, so convinced that money and property were the most important things in life, that she'd destroyed every relationship she had. Her brother was in prison. Her son wouldn't speak to her. Her grandson didn't even remember her. What a lonely existence that must be. But I didn't dwell on it. Patricia had taken up enough space in my head for one lifetime. I had better things to think about now. My husband, my son, my family. The life I'd built from the ashes of the one she'd tried to destroy. That life was good. That life was beautiful. That life was mine. The summer Noah turned 13. We took a family vacation to the beach. We rented a big house right on the water with enough room for everyone. My parents came, of course, and Michael and Sarah with their 2-year-old daughter Lily. It was unconventional, maybe, a blended family vacation with ex-spouses and step-parents and half-siblings all mixed together. But it worked. Somehow, against all odds, it worked. Noah was great with Lily, patient and gentle, letting her toddle after him on the beach and showing her how to build sandcastles. Michael and Will got along surprisingly well, bonding over their shared love of football and grilling. My mother and Sarah exchanged recipes and childcare tips like old friends. And my father sat on the porch of the beach house, watching it all unfold with a satisfied smile. "Quite a family you've got here, Emma," he said when I came to sit beside him. "It's a little unorthodox,"